Megan, good morning, by the way. We'll do your bona
Hi.
fides. How you doing? Good
Good
morning.
morning.
How are you? Really quickly, guys, you know Megan Kate Nelson. She is, Pulitzer Prize shortlisted, wrote Saving Yellowstone, Three-Cornered War, has a new book coming out sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that. We actually... this was really a collaborative effort because Lindsay, myself, and you started going back and forth on a text message thread trying to figure out what we're going to watch next, and we all became aware of the fact that there are a number of shows that are currently streaming, and given how our friends out there like to stream stuff, why don't you unpack this for us, Megan? Tell people what we did. And good morning.
Yeah. Good morning. And before we get into it, can I wish someone else a happy birthday today?
Of course.
It
Is it
is.
your son?
It is. It's my dad's
Aw.
80th birthday today. He's
That's
80 years old.
What's his name?
His name is John Fritchell.
John Fritchell,
And
80th birthday. How's he celebrating, you think?
80th birthday. I don't know. I think he was feeling kind of bummed out about it. He was like, I don't know, it's not really a special day. And I was like, okay. So, yeah, I don't know I don't think, they actually, you know what they're doing? They're going up to the mountains. They're going to our
that's
cabin
nice.
in the mountains. So that's a great way to celebrate.
That's a great way to celebrate.
And-
Peace. It doesn't have to be pomp and circumstance as long as there's some peace.
If you can go at 80 years of age,
Exactly.
Lindsay, to the mountains, that is a great celebration. If you actually
Yeah.
at 80 or
True.
have enough health to be able to go do something like that, I mean, and think
Yeah.
about this is like,
So yeah, tell your dad to get over himself.
and then our dads could beat, and by the way, tell your dad that our dads could beat up your dad because our dads are older.
Wow.
Remember,
Okay.
remember when you were growing
But
up?
he'll bring his hiking sticks to the fight,
Oh.
though. So you better watch out. You better
Outstanding.
watch
My
out.
dad will
Yeah.
bring meaningless words. That's what my dad will bring.
And a saxophone, by the way.
And a saxophone.
That he'll beat people to death with, and my dad will bring his
Oh.
walking stick as well. It'll be a battle of the canes and the walking
Yes.
sticks and the saxophone.
right.
I got to tell you, Lindsay's dad looks like he's about 70. I'm not kidding.
He really does.
He
He
does.
looks so good. He's about to be 81 in just a couple weeks. He's killing it.
He's killing it.
Does not surprise me. Well, thank you for indulging me and wishing my papa, old Pappy, as I call him.
Happy birthday,
happy
old
birthday.
Pappy.
Oh, Pappy. But yeah, so basically we've been watching movies together for a long time, but I don't think we've ever watched a television show or any episodes of a television show. And so we were just discussing because Untamed dropped on Netflix earlier this summer, I think, and American Primeval had come out also on Netflix in January. And these are two very different Westerns. So I'm interested to hear what you guys thought of both of them. Untamed being a modern day kind of police procedural set in Yosemite, and American Primeval, 1857 Utah, really gloriously dirty. Like, I was impressed with how dirty everyone was. That's tremendous in that first episode, very realistic. But introduces, the pilot introduces all your main characters with a nice sprinkling of real life people, like Jim Bridger in there, following really a mother and son as they're trying to make their way to Utah. So two very different shows, but we thought we would watch the pilots and discuss them and then see if we have any strong feelings about a recommendation of which show you should really spend your time on.
I'm going to kind of jump in here and just kind of remind people that one is a very present day sort of, murder mystery, solve the case approach with Eric Bana as the lead investigator and the central character of Untamed. And a woman, a child, and a tracker scout sit at the center of American Primeval. And as Megan has pointed out, it is at least attempts to be a realistic portrayal of how brutal the West was in early or at least teenage America, maybe a good way of kind of laying that out. And Lindsay, I wanted to ask you, because you had a very visceral reaction a couple of days ago when we kind of brought this topic up before. So you've seen both pilots. How far into each show are you? Because it'll go a long way to answering the question of which one you would recommend our listeners.
I only watched the pilot of American Primeval, but my husband has watched the whole series of that. So he watched the whole series while he was on the road, and then I've watched the pilot, and we have discussed the series of whole because I've discussed with him, which I'm going to dive in, which we're going to do together, and then he and I watched the pilot of Untamed. It actually just me forgetting the assignment. I was just lost in what we were doing. I went on to watch 3 episodes of Untamed. For me, this is not necessarily giving anything away, but it is. Anybody hates to watch terrible things happen to children. We have a 6-year-old currently, and I'm around this age kid right now, which is the age there's bad stuff happens to kids in Untamed. Let me just put it that way. And while that's always hard to watch, right now the season we're in, it's kind of unwatchable. If that makes sense.
Perfect sense. I understand. That makes a lot of sense to me. But both are incredibly well produced. We're not. I want to make this really clear, guys. Neither one is not quality. I will tell you that first episode, Lindsay, of American Primeval, literally had me wincing. I was wincing, Megan. I was like, I mean, the amount of danger from the moment that show starts, you feel like there is danger in every single place. Like you're holding on to that cabin in the beginning.
Ooh, I can't breathe thinking about it. But because here's like, I assumed that I was gonna like Untamed because it's more modern. You guys know me. I'm not normally the Western isn't my thing. However, you guys have made me understand the beauty of the Western and the connection piece of what would I do if I was in that moment kind of thing. And that's how I watch Westerns now. So now I'm in. Now I actually love them. So I just assumed though I was going to like Untamed. But for me, if we're speaking as far as Western, I'm like, well, American Primeval, it holds more resonance as a Western with, all the symbolic weight and thematically. It's embedded in that frontier mythology. And that's why I'm like, okay, if we're talking Western, American Primeval is
a Western.
Is a Western.
Yeah.
How can you, on that, Megan Kate Nilsson, make your case of why Untamed is a Western outside of that he's in the wilderness?
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I thought was interesting about it. I've seen the entire season, so I've watched it through to the end, and the child in peril part of it doesn't get any better. So, just
good to know.
Trigger warning. That part of it does not make you feel any better. But I mean, I had real questions about this show. I wondered, because so much of it is a police procedural, primarily, right? I mean, and it has some overlap with Westerns. We have a damaged hero who's kind of on his own, but then kind of pairs up with a fish out of water character, and they are on the hunt. They're in pursuit, and we've talked about this as part of Western movies, at least, that this is a very common plot device, that the law is on the hunt for someone who is a criminal or wrongly accused, and that's sort of what drives the action. So there, I think it has that vibe. Of course, it's set in Yosemite. There's a lot of California stuff. Now, some people would say some people would argue California is not really the West. I would not say that totally.
It's a strange argument.
Yeah,
it literally is.
I did feel like, though, that Untamed could have been set anywhere with mountains or like a long stretch of mostly unoccupied forest. Like it could be set in northern Maine. It could be set in parts of Canada. It could be set in Appalachia. It felt like you needed to have a component where people are able to kind of get lost and hide and do nefarious things in places where they're not being monitored. But I didn't know if it necessarily was a Western. I don't know, Jimmy. What did you think?
Well, one of the things I make a case that it's a Western for, and I think this is something that kind of fits into both you and Lindsay's bailiwick, is that there is the presence of what is a borderline cult. What I call the shiny happy people who are now dirty and dirty hippies, I guess is the best way of kind of describing it.
Shiny, dirty people everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. A bunch of stinky folks. And the problem with stinky folks in Appalachia is the stinky folks who go there looking to find themselves and looking to be part with nature often run into some really unsavory characters in Appalachia. And if you try that nonsense up into the Acadian forest in the Maine area, there's a lot of people who want a conversation with you. I think the West, in particular, when we talk about American Primeval too, it's only in the West can people like the Mormons actually take a foothold, because the Mormons play a big part in American Primeval, to the point where in people who know the history of the Mormons, it's like a situation like the Puritans, where it's, you know what, get out. You're not taking over the company store. Get out. And the Mormons keep moving further out west. Megan, this is one of your areas, but the idea that setting it any place else puts a lot of the unsavory characters in the story too close to accessible law enforcement. That even in Appalachia, even over in upstate New York, upstate Maine, all of those kind of places, you run the risk of law enforcement getting to you in a hurry. The West that they're kind of setting this in is the kind of place where you can both be groovy and disappear and really be left alone, whereas a lot of those other places you don't get left alone. And that's the big appeal to the West, is that here's a space where I can become whatever I want to become and pretend I'm somebody else. Because in Untamed, the woman who actually runs that camp is a Westerner. The reinvention of the self that she talks about is really crazy. For those of you who don't realize, the whole thing about Untamed, it's a murder mystery that begins with two guys climbing on the side of a mountain. And this is the opening scene, by the way, so no spoilers. And something happens on the side of that mountain that actually surprised me, Lindsay. I actually jumped in my chair. And I usually see stuff coming. I'm like, oh, I thought it's going to be, oh, yeah, here we go. I know exactly what's going to happen. And it was like, oh, my God, what the hell was that? And it's a crazy opening. Both of them, both shows really grab you by the seat of the pants almost immediately. Just crazy good. Megan, my other question for you is, what did both of you guys think about that opening one-shot battle sequence in the first episode of American Primeval? You know, I mean, that was something else.
Yeah, that was supposed to be. It's sort of evocative of. It's not an actual historical depiction of the Mountain Meadow Massacre, which was a real attack by Mormons on white migrants in wagon trains, where they killed more than 100 people, including women and children who were moving through their land. It's not exactly the same. The scale is not the same. The location is not the same. But it actually reminded me, and Lindsay, you probably won't want to hear this, it reminded me of that initial scene in The Revenant, which is a movie I love, but I know, you're not a fan. But it had that same chaotic nature to it, where arrows are just flying in from everywhere and people are getting shot down and cut down. And, this is different. They are mimicking the style of an indigenous attack while being Mormons. Not indigenous, but they have, I think, some indigenous allies with them, some Paiutes. But, I thought it was extraordinarily well done. I thought the whole thing was, actually. I was a little worried about this. I had been kind of avoiding American Primeval because the promos I had seen, I think, made especially the Betty Gilpin character, Sarah, just like really awkward. I know, but it seemed like the promos just made her super awkward, and her line readings were really weird. And I was like, I don't want to see another white woman imperiled in this sort of thing. But you learn something about her halfway through the pilot that changes the whole scenario.
Oh, yeah.
And so you become invested in her and in her safety in a different kind of way. And so I thought it was really well done, and I'm going to watch the rest of the season.
So you've already watched all of Untamed, and now you're in for both. We're more making the case to people what because we will at the very end of this say yay, nay, who's going where, when. Megan, can you stick around for a couple more minutes if we take a break here?
Only if we talk about reggae.
Okay, fine. Reggae as it pertains to Western. Yeah, because it's clear which I'm going to recommend on show, but I want to talk about, so I wrote down a few some of the, I think the discussions, because here's the thing, I think we recommend to people what they should watch because it becomes good, dinner party, truck stop conversation, whatever. It's the themes that come up in these shows to me that are so intriguing from like, a philosophical lens. And I wrote down several things to bring up with you guys about particularly what American Primeval discussion-wise lends itself for me. So, Megan, if you could stay for a few more minutes after this break, and we will talk reggae and murder in the woods. Good times.
The only thing is cool is Megan Kate Nelson and Lindsay Lawler are a good pair of Shady Rays. Go to shadyrays.com. They got a lost and broken protection program. They got great quality customer service. Go to shadyrays.com because at the end of the day, they got it, man. You know they got it. They got your back. We'll be right back.
At the end of the day, you gotta wear your rays. Shady Rays.
You know Sap Brothers will beat any competitor's advertised price on tires, so hold on to that fifth wheel, because when you buy 4 Salem S624 EFTs, the perfect line haul trailer tire, mounted at Sap Brothers, your price is an amazing $199.99, originally priced at $299.99, and prices are good through June 30, 2025 while supplies last. Save on 4 or more at Sap Brothers, and nobody's going to beat that price. Salem Tires, advanced compound technology for maximum mileage and rolling resistance without compromise. When you think tires, think Sap Brothers.
The mission of Wreaths Across America is unwavering, remembering our fallen heroes, honoring those who are currently serving, along with their families, and most importantly, teaching the next generation about the value of freedom. And you can join our mission with a $17 donation that sponsors a fresh Maine Balsam Remembrance Wreath. Each wreath will be laid in honor of a veteran who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. To sponsor your wreath, please visit wreathsacrossamerica.org. That's wreathsacrossamerica.org.
Check out the new over-the-top lineup at participating Country Pride and Iron Skillet restaurants. 3 gigantic sandwiches loaded with flavor. Try the Chicken Parm Stack, the Big Country Combo, or the Ultimate Smash Melt. The Ultimate Smash Melt. 2 delicious smash burger patties, surrounded by 2 grilled cheese sandwiches. 2 sandwiches in 1. Visit your favorite Country Pride or Iron Skillet restaurant and come hungry.
Available for dine-in only at participating Country Pride and Iron Skillet restaurants inside TA or Petro Travel Centers.
Well, hey there. Thanks for riding with us. Now let's get back to Road Gang Radio, live from New Orleans and Nashville. Here's Jimmy Mack and Lindsay Lawler.
And Megan Kate Nelson continues on the ride with us. Guys, don't forget at the end of this show, Trucking with Oida arrives lean and mean and on the scene. Kind of a continuation of Louis. Go ahead, do it, Lindsay.
Pew, 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 pew.
He was terrific this morning, as was Dean Croak, as were our 2 favorite Canadians, as has been Megan Kate Nelson. Lindsay, over the break, and before the break, you were saying you have some rapid-fire observations and some questions you want to throw our way. I will let you take it away.
Okay. Well, I just thought that and I wrote down a couple of these themes with American Primeval. Again, I think in my head we were discussing which Western are we going to watch, so immediately American Primeval is the Western. Untamed, as Megan has pointed out, she does not think it classifies as a Western. Jim made a case for how it is and could be. But I guess that, at the end of the day, it comes down to what are you into? What do you want to watch? What's your bag if you're going to sit down and commit your time? For me, with American Primeval, I'm always drawn personally to, deeper structural stories, like with seeing the systemic violence and our cultural classes and clashes and how a bill becomes a law, so to speak. And so with American Primeval, I think it opens up so many discussions for, to me, this is a big one, collective responsibility, moral compromise and moral ambiguity, I guess, rather, and also the shaping of a national identity through this, like, violent myth making and that's I guess what's happening for me via Megan Kate Nelson and Jimmy Mack is I'm going back and actually paying attention in history class that I didn't do growing up, and I'm like, oh, I understand why we study history now. I get it. It's like what lessons do we learn so we don't have to make those mistakes again? And so I see Westerns now in a whole different light.
Yeah, and yesterday, Megan, Lindsay and I were talking with a woman named Lisa Morton, who actually is an expert on seances and the history of seances. And even there was stuff there that I wasn't aware of until I kind of dove into her book as well, too. And it's always fun, Lindsay, just to kind of throw this back to you. It's always fun that how much more sense sometimes things make, the things that seem like a science fiction film, when you watch them in the movies, when you actually have the historical context, you go, oh, wait, that makes perfect sense. Now I know why there's so much bad feeling towards Mormons, for instance, in American Primeval. I mean, right? You know, I mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. And the whole history of Mormons in Utah, I mean, I think right now, just if you're thinking about it right now, you're like, oh, yeah, there are a lot of Mormons in Utah and Idaho and kind of places in that region of the West. Like, but how did they come to be there? And how have they been able to stay and kind of build this pretty enormous religious community kind of as part of the American fabric? And it's a really fascinating, it's a story about American religion, but it's also a story about the American West. That, Jimmy, you're totally right. They kept establishing themselves and then getting attacked and kicked out. And they ultimately ended up on the banks of the Great Salt Lake because they thought no one would ever come after them. But instead, the Mormons became, after the gold rush or the gold discoveries in California, they're like perfectly positioned to provision all of those gold seekers who are moving from east to west. They're right in the middle. And so you can make it over those Wasatch Mountains to Salt Lake and then re-provision and then make your way across the desert to California. So they're a fascinating community to study, especially in this late 1850s, because they don't want to have anything to do with the federal government. So there is actually, it was not an all-out war, but what they say at the beginning of the episode is true. The U.S. government is sending troops to Utah to put down this kind of rebellion by Brigham Young and his Mormons. And they have a giant militia. They have 2,000 men who are ready to defend the Mormon community. So that's the whole context of this moment, and it's really, really interesting.
It's intense, by the way. And the opening American Primeval, I don't mind the chaos because it sets it up for like, just, buckle in. We're about to tell you a tale. Okay, but guys, here's a thought. Here's a terribly dumb idea.
Lindsay's dumb idea of the day, number one.
Oh, boy.
What if there was reality TV back then in the 1800s? What would the reality show, what would the reality TV version of American Primeval be? Because listen, it's not, I called my friend the other day who is a Mormon that lives in Utah, and I was like, dude, what is up with Secret Lives of Mormon Wives? What is happening? And he's like, please stop watching that. And I'm like, I'm not watching it. I had to watch one episode because I just had to give him crap. But he's like, please stop watching that. That is not real. But it led me between that and then watching the Mormon cultural classes here in American Primeval. I'm like, what would an actual reality show look like back in the day? And let me add the caveat of my husband who has worked a lot in reality TV is always like, it's not just go film. It's not just go turn a camera on, because that's unfortunately that is real, but that is not entertaining. So how do you make reality actually entertaining and not in a documentary kind of way? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Megan,
allow either one to answer.
Megan, I'm going to actually start off by saying in a way that I think a lot of our listeners will actually get a kind of what I call their dark libertarian streak. I think the shows would constantly be getting canceled, not because of the lack of interest, but because the creators of those shows would often get killed in episodes. It would be like, it's like literally like, I've had enough of you, and then shoot them down. I don't want people to see that and then scalp them. I don't want people to be a part of that and then throw them off a cliff. I think they would have a problem.
You're like, my favorite character is Jim. Oh, Jim's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite character is Meg. Oh, Megan's dead.
Oh, they got the dysentery. Oh, they're done. Oh, they're done. Oh, by the way, I don't like being filmed. I don't like my sacred ceremony being filmed. I'm going to kill you. By the way, are you Mormon? No, bang. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe the Mormons could have done it. Maybe given the infrastructure the Mormons actually built in Salt Lake City, Lindsay, I'm not being funny. Maybe they could have pulled it off. But then again, they would have turned it into propaganda about how wonderful their religion was. I don't know if it can
But
be
then
done.
take a reality director right now. Okay, take the guy or girl, whoever, the creator or director of, say, The Bachelor or Bachelorette, okay? Now send them back to 1850 and be like, you make a reality show. It'd be their dream come true because there was so much real drop. Like, they're like, oh my God, I wish the Bachelorettes were murdering each other on our show. This is gold.
But the problem is the Bachelor would just pick all the women and marry them if there was a Mormon.
That's true. That's true. Which makes for good TV. Makes for good TV. I'm just saying.
I'm picking them all. I've decided to pick them all. But it goes, yay! It's like America's Got Talent last night. We're picking all of you. Yay!
Yay! It's like, here's your final rose. Oh, I'm gonna need 12 more.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna need a bigger house.
So, do you have a problem with the show Bachelor? Yes, I do. There are not enough women up on this stage. I need more women up on the stage. Mormons.
Not enough people being murdered. I do watch The Bachelor and wish I could murder people, so maybe we can meld the two.
By the way, you know how, like, in stuff like Jackass, we get these montages of people getting whacked and thunked on the head, these outtakes of, like, all of this stuff going wrong in rapid succession. I think that any reality show set in the West in the 1850s would be these rapid montages of people dying for stupid reasons. Falling off of a horse, falling off of a cliff, drowning in the river. Look at that, Bob drowned in the river. Let's go get another shot set up.
That old chestnut.
Yeah, I mean, Bob drowned again.
Getting dysentery.
Yeah, I mean,
we could have the old Oregon Trail video game. You know, you died of dysentery.
You've died of dysentery.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question for you then on that. That was obviously a ridiculous conversation, but it leads us to now a serious one. Megan Kate, to you the idea, because we as a collective, we're so fragile, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like we don't see a quarter of the things or experience a quarter of the things that our ancestors and down the line did, of course. And so you've had to sort of put yourself through all your writing and studies, had to put yourself in those people's shoes so many times. And like the idea from what Jim said, he just fell off a horse, he died, he drowned again. Like that was normal to them. Like, oh, my kid died of a disease, and they just keep on rolling. Like, I guess what I'd like to unpack is the idea of grief for them. Was there ever any space, or I guess when there isn't space to sit and grieve, is that how those people moved through it? Because it's like, yeah, your kid died, but there's also an Indian about to shoot you behind you, so just keep going or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That feels huge.
Yeah. I mean, I think child mortality rates were enormous in the 19th century, and you could see why, right? They had no idea about germs. No one had any idea about any of that. So even if you were able to get to a doctor, they weren't washing their hands between patients. So, like, people were getting infections and dying all the time, even if they were getting decent medical care, which most of them weren't. And, like, pregnancy and delivery was like, oh, my God. Lots of mothers dying in childbirth, just horrible. And so, this was a kind of more present part of life, which doesn't mean that people didn't grieve, right? I mean, grieving was, I think, just more constant in the 19th century. It was not a kind of a moment that was a break with your quote unquote real life. It was just a constant strain in your life. Where, this was just, it was happening on the daily. And so, and people they had to deal with it and move forward. But as you can imagine, I mean, there's a lot of, in that period, undiagnosed, like depression and terrible things, because, it takes a toll no matter what.
I'm going to prescribe you a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in many ways that was often the kind of cure-all. I'm going to prescribe you a bottle of whiskey.
I need it right
now. And I want to put something in perspective that Megan just said for our listeners out there. Look, we've all done it. We've all put a nail through our hand, or something dumb like that. I don't mean that we've all put a nail through our hand. But,
I did it this morning.
But my grandpa.
I have not done that, Jimmy.
No, wait, listen. My grandfather and I were working in the backyard when I was growing up, and he was actually, he was hacking up. We were hacking stuff around the house to get weeds up and all this kind of stuff. And he actually had a small little axe hammer. and he clipped, that piece of skin between your finger and your thumb. And it was a fairly substantial cut. He got 7 stitches. There's a good chance in 1857 he's dead man walking because of the infection that sets in. We don't talk about that either. I mean, the amount of time that people on farms would cut their hand or make a fall on a barbed wire fence, have an accident like where they fell off something and the cut would kill them. And that kind of stuff happened all the time. And that perpetual sense of grief, which is a great question, Lindsay. I mean, and we actually have it. Here's what's really cool, Megan.
I needed whiskey when she said it was just a constant state of grief. I'm like, holy crap, that really landed.
And by the way, Lindsay, if you really are interested in the topic, I would read any good biography of Abraham Lincoln. I would devour it because, man, that is one giant walk with grief and 2 very different reactions. Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln, how they deal with the death of children, how they deal with the tragedies in their life. Both of them write. Lincoln writes so many letters and so many journal entries about what he is going through and speaks publicly about it, speaks to his wife about it, writes her letters and all of that stuff. I mean, it is classic clinical depression. I mean, I don't mean manic depression. I don't mean the condition. I mean a genuine case of a depressive episode based on the grief of losing a child. And we have a real clear sense of that as well. People also wrote better. The people that could write wrote better. And I don't mean that as like, people do stuff better in the old days and all that kind of nonsense, but because
they didn't have all the clutter that we have.
That's exactly it. They couldn't work in shorthand.
Or they had different clutter.
And you had time, you actually spent the time to actually craft those letters. I mean, Megan, you must have gone through some documents about people talking about the deaths of sons. I mean, the Civil War in and of itself, which is I mean, the letters. If you, Lindsay, you want to see grief?
Yeah.
Watch Ken Burns' documentary on the Civil War, and it is an ongoing epic of grief.
Have you guys read, I have seen pieces of that, but have you guys read Widow of the South? If not, I would like to make a...
recent?
No, it's, let me look up how long. No, it's been a while because it's been 20 years since I knew of it.
Okay.
Let me see. Widow of the South by Robert Hicks, who I tried to get on the show and then realized he passed away, so that's going to be a tough one. But Seamus, you read Widow of the South, right? Okay, anyway. So Tennessee 1864 is what it's about, but it's set right in our backyard. So anyway, that's what I recommend it for both of you. It's great. And came out in 2005. That's where it is. It's about 20 years ago, yeah. Anyway, but point just that landed the grief on that. And I think I feel you got here. I'm gonna throw in I'm gonna get woo for 1 second.
When Lindsay gets woo.
Oh, getting woo. Uh-oh.
Lindsay gets woo. So I had a energy worker, healer, whatever you say, come over to my house. It was actually a friend, and she just came by because she was intrigued by our land out here. So we live very close to, I'm in Franklin, Tennessee. Several battles, Battle of Franklin, several battles were around here. There's also a lot of Indian burial grounds around here. And she came out and she stepped on our land and she was like, almost fell to the ground. And she was like, oh my God, there is so much you can feel and see around here. She went back and did a bunch of research around our land. And she came back over and she's like, can I come back over and do a healing for your home and land? I was like, oh my God, please. What now I know I'm feeling so heavy at home. And she did. And whether you get woo or not on energy, it is something to think about when you do live near anything that's been I mean, Jim, even living, near Katrina, that goes for anything, any sort of, which every piece of land has something that's gone through, but I believe it carries a weight and an energy around it, the spaces and places before us. And so I don't know. I think it's a whole nother angle, but it is something to note.
Mm-hmm.
Megan,
and I think that connects to, at the end of the pilot in Untamed, the Eric Bana's indigenous friend, who's also a park ranger, just kind of says, the sky is speaking, and it's saying that death has come again to my people's land. Mm-hmm. But then he also says something interesting, which is the sky doesn't care about you and what you're doing, which I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. But yeah, no, I mean, there is that sort of sense that that anything that happens in a place becomes, an echo, and you can feel it.
Yeah.
I have had the joy, and it's joy aftermath. While I was doing it, I could feel the weight of it. I've actually done the 14-mile trail at Shiloh National Battlefield, and also walked Gettysburg as well. Shiloh, though, was worse. I found Gettysburg to have a feeling of peace there, whereas Shiloh just gave me the creeps. Because the earth is more flat there, Lindsay. It's much more flat earth in Shiloh, and you get that mist above the grass in the morning on a cool morning, and so there really is a sense of being haunted by that. And Lindsay, there are people who have walked the wilderness, and I don't mean the generic wilderness, but the battle of the wilderness, who to this day they say it is so haunted out there as to take your breath away, because at the end of that battle, both sides were literally entrenched in, and they could hear people calling for mother all throughout the battlefield, and nobody could get to them. And then desperately having to make the choice of throwing water on the growing fire or saving it to drink as people burn to death out there. It is just, like I said, grief was. I think you're right, Lindsay. I think it was a perpetual sense of grief.
Well, and Megan saying that was huge, and I think too, like it may be a good discussion for if somebody is, or at least somebody like me. I know that's my entry point to history is when the connection piece. So like to stand on land and be like somebody else walked here, and my husband was working in, and my husband just brought me a cup of coffee. Bless you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service. He was working over in France, and so I went over. I got the very amazing opportunity to go meet him a couple years ago, and we went to Normandy. And so sitting on those beaches, he was out overworking, and I sat there with a journal on the beach and thought about the men coming out of the water, the men, storming Normandy. I just sat there, and you get it in that moment if you can take yourself out of your own place and drop in and just kind of close your eyes and be like, wow, what, feel the connection of what happened there is amazing. Anyway, amazing and equal parts heavy, and
the literal definition of amazing, the literal, as opposed to, like I always say, it's the literal definition of awesome as opposed to the vernacular awesome. Like, this is awesome that I can't even conceive. It's amazing that I am amazed. My breath has been taken away. I am in a place of transcendence. I have been transported. What's the most,
as opposed to this cheese stick's amazing? Is it?
Exactly. As opposed to you're awesome. Maybe you are. Maybe I fill you with awe and wonder. But the truth of the matter is, it's the real definition. And one more quick thing, and then I want to hear Megan tell us her favorite haunted place. Everybody who listens to this show knows we go to Arlington National Cemetery every year. Arlington National Cemetery's very creation is an act of grief. It is literally someone so in grief about the death of his son that he decided to build a national cemetery in the rose garden of Robert E. Lee's home. There you go.
Take that.
There you go. Thank you so much. Here's your reward for all those men murdered on the fields of Gettysburg. There you go. There you go. Here's your payback for Fredericksburg. Megan, what's the creepiest place you've been to historically?
I don't know about creepy, but definitely the place where I felt like there was still a lingering presence, let's just say, is Bosque Redondo, which was a reservation in central New Mexico where the U.S. Army drove 10,000 Navajo people and about 500 Mescalero Apache, and incarcerated them for about 4 years. And it was just a dire, dire place. But the Navajo people and the Mescalero Apache people survived that place and ended up going back to their homelands after that moment. So it's quite it has been preserved as, I believe, a state historic site. And there's a museum, and then you can see the fort that was there. But indigenous peoples have come and have left tokens there, and it's those kinds of actions that I think in these places really connect you in the present to the place of the past, right? And but also emphasize that kind of hauntedness and that ghostly aspect to it.
Wow, I'm looking on it. Yes, it is a New Mexico historical site. I'm reading about it now. Bosque Redondo. Redondo.
Yeah.
Would you say if I'm going to go make a New Mexico trip, is that something I 100% need to spend some time at?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Check the times though the date and time, because it's out. It's about a 2.5
No,
hour
I'm going right
drive
now.
from
I'm going right now. I'm
Santa
going
Fe?
now, Megan.
Well, I only tell you that because I, like an idiot, did not check the times. And I was researching for the Three Cornered War, and that's a major site in that book for me, to tell that story. And I drove 2.5 hours from Santa Fe, and it was not open that day.
Oh, no.
Lindsay, check
Wow.
the time.
I know.
Okay, I'll check the time. Got
I
it.
was pretty bummed. So, yeah. And then I had to drive on to Albuquerque, which is about 2 hours away. So it is, a lot of those sites in the West. I mean, this is what Jimmy was kind of pointing out about Untamed, I think, that does make it Western, is that the spaces are so huge, right? And the distances between places is so huge. And that is a kind of mark of the West, unlike other regions of the United States. And so that I think is emphasized when you go on a trip to a place like New Mexico, where you're like, oh, I'm going to take a day trip to Taos, from Albuquerque. And you're like, okay, that's a 3-hour drive, like each way.
Texas
like,
time.
It's not next door.
Texas
Like,
time. That's
yeah.
Texas time. It's like, it's an hour away. I'll be there. I'll be there shortly. Listen.
Okay, well, I was going to say, each one, Jim, Megan, Kate, let's all go around now as we wrap up and give
okay.
which one is your vote and why. Your vote for what you specifically would spend your time watching if it were between the two, and why.
Megan.
Okay. Are we starting with me?
Yes.
I will say American Primeval, because I think it is it's a modern production, so the modern quality is really good, but it is deeply immersed in the 1850s West, which is not a time period actually that we hear about a lot. And I found the pilot really intriguing, and I'm invested in pretty much all the characters who we met.
I am going to go with Megan here. I'm going to say American Primeval, because I just like when people really make an effort to kind of recreate the energies of the time and the hardness of the time. I think, and I'm also making a recommendation because having watched both things from pillar to post, I actually believe that our listeners, given what we know about them, are going to like it. Lindsay, I just realized something else. One more reason not for you to ever watch any more of Untamed. You haven't gotten to the stuck in a cave moment, so don't watch it.
Yes, I have. When she's crawling through the cave.
Oh, you got there?
Oh, I saw that. The spelunking moment. I was
my-
like, no, sir.
Have you ever been more relieved to hear somebody's voice in the distance? Have you
Yes.
ever been more? I mean, I was, when Eric Boehner's voice goes, "Are you there?" And I'm like, "Oh, thank God." I'm like, this is going on forever, man. This is never going to end. She's not going to get out of here. I thought about you in that moment. I went, you know what? Maybe we should put the brakes on this.
Oh God, that moment. I knew you were thinking about me that moment because she's crawling through and it starts to get smaller and smaller. I was like, no, oh
And
God,
then the
oh
water
God.
starts coming in.
And the moment I had a blanket on me and I was claustrophobic. So come on, like I couldn't even do that.
The decency of his voice, trust me, you can know it's coming and it's still traumatic when he just says, "I just need you to calm down and crawl backwards." And it's like the most reassuring thing I've ever heard. And they gave it to
Slow
Eric.
your breath.
Slow your
Slow
breath.
your
Just
breath.
awesome. Lindsay, your turn.
Well, I also will say American Primeval, which surprised me, but honestly, it's mainly because the darkness, the child trauma was just too much for me, and I think all of our listeners are good people and need to see something. Well, I mean, listen, there's a lot of trauma in American Primeval too. So for me, it's American Primeval because I can't do the child thing over the current child thing. But what I do like, exactly what Megan said, it's a Western, but with the modern production. So it feels so real and so raw, and you immediately identify with all these characters. So it looks like there is a clear winner. Ding, ding, ding. Tell our listeners what they've won.
We're going to go with the distant sound of trauma. and go with American Primeval.
You're welcome, America.
Megan Kate Nelson, by the way, is an incredibly celebrated author. She would run from that description, but she's a writer and historian. She lives in Lincoln, Massachusetts. She's written about the Civil War, U.S. Western history, American culture for the New York Times, the Washington Post, Smithsonian, Preservation Magazine, and the Civil War Monitor. By the way, not only is her stuff incredibly well researched, it's incredibly well written, which means it's fun to read. And we can't thank her enough, as she always does, making time for us. Guys, go to MeganKateNelson.com. Find her on the gram of Insta at MeganKateNelson. And, we'll leave it at that. I won't give them your phone number. I was thinking about it, but I won't do that. So.
555 hottie. That's what it is.
Thank you, Megan. We love you.
Thanks, you guys. Have a good week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
You too, Fran.